Hi, I'm Ricky Gervais.
My name's Steve Merchant.
I'm Carl Pilkington. All right.
And you're listening to the World's Technology Podcast.
Can we do that end bit? Just hang on. Here we go. On the count of three. Right?
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Are you guys ready to go?
Absolutely.
All right. I should start off by thanking all of you because I usually have to do my interviews from a very small, cramped, smelly booth in the newsroom, but I actually get to come down to the big studio today. So thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot for showing up.
Is that because of us?
Yeah, just because of you guys. I get the studio.
Well, you get more comfort because we're on.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
we're in a small little smelly booth, so I don't know what's going on.
Well, okay. Anyway. I guess I should start off by asking, Ricky, Steven, you guys have been working together for a long time. TV, radio. Why podcasting?
A couple of reasons, really. It's total artistic freedom. I mean, we always had, artistic freedom. It's not the fact that we can get more freedom of speech than we ever did have, but it's more convenience. We can do it when we want for as long as we want. But the main thing is that it's literally global. Unlike everything else, people in America can't get the DVD of extras yet, maybe, or they, But this is available when it's available here. It's available everywhere.
I think you say artistic freedom there, Rick. I wonder if that paints the impression of this being some kind of artistic endeavour.
I was going to push that point just a little bit, having listened to every episode of your podcast so far, but we'll get to that in just a second. Was this the Guardian's idea or your idea?
Ours.
It was your idea?
Yeah.
You guys went to the Guardian and said, can we do a podcast?
That's exactly right, yeah.
And then you offered to do it for free?
Well, we wanted to do it for free, so we had to have someone to host it, because obviously it costs money for the setup and stuff. So we always wanted to give it away for free. It's just then someone had to facilitate that.
Right.
So that idea came first. That was absolutely fundamental, that I wanted it free. Yeah, we just and the Guardian were great about that. They're sort of like the forerunner of sort of media in England. So it was a marriage made in heaven.
I mean, they have been out in front, haven't they, on new media, blogging, pictures from picture phones, things like that. A lot of sort of citizen media.
I must warn you that the more you press any point, the more you'll find our ignorance.
Oh, right. Okay.
Blogging?
Yeah,
a blog.
While you're ahead.
Blogging throws you guys, huh?
Yeah, that's when you just go online and talk about what you did that day, isn't it?
All right. Well, how about? I mean, you obviously must have known a little bit about podcasting, or you wouldn't have gone to the Guardian with the idea.
And we knew what it was. We knew that people do it in their bedroom and stick it on the internet for all to listen to, but they only get 25 people listening to it. And we thought, with our global fame, we could get more listeners than that.
Right. So I'm curious, Carl, how did you get involved with all of this?
Don't know really. Just I did the radio show with Ricky and Steve, and
that was a radio show there that went out in Britain, right?
Yeah, went out in London, but on the internet and that. Mm-hmm. And then they wanted to carry on Monkey News.
Yeah, Monkey News, for listeners who haven't heard, is sort of a roundup of Monkey News. Yeah.
Well, I think what we should make clear to people who aren't familiar with the show is that, unlike the things that Ricky and I have worked on in the past, our TV sitcoms and things, this is not a carefully crafted comedy show. This is basically Ricky and I probing Carl about his views and opinions on the world. And what we discovered when we started working with him is that they are unique. And that word is bandied around, but I think I would be right in saying, Rick, that they are truly unique
Carl
views.
is the most fascinating human being I've ever met. And I mean that both as a compliment and as an insult. His views are fascinating, but they're rather like if you the first chimp that ever speaks. They're rather like when you thaw out a caveman and then experiment on him. I mean, I see myself and Steve as very much as Anthony Hopkins in The Elephant Man, taking round Carl as an exhibit. And it's strange that now people want to talk to it. It
Now-
really is only a prop in our show.
Now, Carl, you're not getting paid to do this, so why do you take this kind of abuse?
I don't really see it as abuse.
All right,
mean,
okay. I mean,
That's
they've
just
said
stupid.
they've as much as said it's abuse.
Yeah, but it's just, I mean, I sort of learn stuff from it, so that's a reason to do it. But also,
What have you learnt this week?
well, the what's her name? About that lion. That if it could chat, it couldn't. I don't always learn something. At every
Right,
week,
obviously.
but-
He's referring to Wittgenstein's lion, where Wittgenstein said that if a lion could speak English, you wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to understand it. It's because his frames of reference would be so far removed that even though he's using real words in the English language, we wouldn't be able to understand what he said. Carl, what did you learn about that?
I just thought a lion was a bad example of a creature that you couldn't have a chat with.
Go on.
Yeah,
No, I just.
I'm with you so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all I'm
Bad
saying.
example of a creature you couldn't have a chat with. So you're saying that you could have a chat with a lion. It's a bad
I
example.
just think because you said it could speak English. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, if it can speak English, it's wandering about. It's got quite a normal life, but it can't speak English at the moment.
Right.
It's like us. It roams about. It's
Yeah.
looking for food.
Yeah.
Now, if it was a worm, I'd say, yeah, that's not going to happen. Just because it's got all the odds are against it.
It lives underground.
It's underground,
yeah.
so it's not living the sort of life we have. It's
Mhm.
blind. Do you know what I mean, Clark?
It's got no mouth,
um,
so it's going to be muffled when it speaks English.
As always, Carl, I kind of try to start. I kind of start getting my head around what you're trying to say about 10 minutes after you've said it.
Yeah.
Sort of.
So does he.
Yeah, and that's the sense that I get from listening. Now, I'm just going to take the last episode as an example. Carl, you held forth on dishwashers on Mars. We had that in there. We had what a day would be like on a different planet. But my favorite part, and I just want to play a little clip here, was Carl Pilkington making the case that dinosaurs should roam the Earth right now. If we could just play a clip from last week's episode. Yeah, Ricky won.
When you think about it, there's a population problem.
Yeah.
No one's allowed to get injured anymore. You've got to, wear a helmet when you're on a bike. There's speed bumps to slow people down. Cures for illnesses. No one's dying anymore, and that's a problem. So
So
what
you
I'm saying
feel
is,
that you should introduce Tyrannosaurus Rex into,
wandering
say,
about, wandering
London, just have him wandering around, just picking people off.
that's what just sort of random and that, because I don't know. I mean, I'm not wishing that anyone I know dies and that, but all I'm saying is I don't know anyone who's died for ages.
Right.
Whereas if a dinosaur was knocking about, then it is survival of the fittest, which is, we've lost all that now. You don't even have to be fit to survive. You just keep sticking a new lung on you. Or, do you know what I mean? They can do too much now to keep people going.
just keep sticking a new lung on you.
Carl, do you still feel that way about dinosaurs roaming the Earth? That would be a good idea? Just curious.
All I'm saying is, we might not have to go that far, but I'm just saying we've got to keep an eye on it.
Right.
Because
Wait a minute. Got to keep an eye on what? The population
just
problem?
the amount of people
Oh,
we're
right.
knocking
Okay.
about, and we're
All right.
saving everyone. And I was reading yesterday about we're worried about the polar bears now, and it's just like, let something die. Just because if we're saving everything, where are we going to live? Because they're just going to. Do you know what I mean? More and more people are taking up space.
And polar bears have become a real problem there in London, I've read recently.
no,
or
but it's just saying, like, we're worried about them. But what I'm saying is, if the polar bears do die out, that's more land available to put houses on, because we'll be needing that space. One thing I can tell you, Clark, the world isn't getting any bigger.
Now,
Polar bears don't live on land; they live on ice caps.
Yeah.
right.
I'm just...
Another part of it's a fascination with animals of all stripes I've noticed in the podcast. You were just talking about polar bears. We were just talking about lions. One of my favorite parts from the last episode, though, was a reading from Carl's diary.
Yeah.
I should preface this. The premise here behind Carl's diary is what
Well,
exactly?
I sort of did it just because I find that if I write things down, I remember them better. Because I didn't do that well at school, right, Clark? Mainly because I didn't write stuff down. I just sort of stayed in the class, listened, and then left and couldn't remember it. So now I'm doing this podcast. I'm learning a lot. Not every week, like I say, but now and again I pick something up and I think that's good. So I think if I write it down, it'll go into my head.
Okay.
So I started doing the diary.
See, that would be a good rule of thumb and a way forward if the things you wrote down were true in the first place. You see, when you look back in years to come and you go, oh, I learnt something. Yeah, there's a dishwasher on Mars.
Yeah, but have you heard about that, Clark?
It's not
you're
true.
working on a
It's
big...
not true. It's not true.
Yeah, the dishwasher on Mars thing I wasn't entirely convinced about, but I do like the fact that Carl is so interested in science and technology.
But the thing is, it's the thing is about the dishwasher on Mars was that it was in a piece explaining that they've got telescopes now that could see a dishwasher on Mars. It was purely an illustrative point, and we explained this to him afterwards, and we explained to him that there are telescopes that can see the Big Bang because that's how long it takes light to get here. That happened billions of years ago. He couldn't see that. He couldn't see that when you see a star burn out, it happened a million years ago. I mean, he absolutely couldn't grasp that concept.
But I don't see why we're looking that far, because we're not going to get there. To me, it's a bit of a teaser. It's like showing you a really nice beach and saying, but you can't go there. So what's the point in seeing it? The whole thing about seeing something is being able to go, that looks nice, I'm going to go there, or that looks nice, I'm going to buy one. But to say,
Well,
look
that's
at
not
this,
true.
What do you mean?
But that's not true. That's not true in all cases, is it?
Why?
Well, why have we been fascinated with art? Why have we been fascinated with... people don't show you the Mona Lisa because one day you might buy it.
Well, yeah, but I've talked about that. I'm not a big fan of a lot of art. But what I do know is I don't want to look miles away and see stuff that's happened and I can't change the end of. I mean, are you up for it, Clark? Would you have one?
Have what?
Have what? A dishwasher on
binoculars that
see,
you can
this is
see
the
for
problem,
miles.
Carl. I get lost in it. When by the time you get to asking me the question, I don't quite know what you're asking me anymore.
I'm just saying, is it worth seeing that far?
There you are, Clark. That's one of the most extraordinary questions you must have been asked in some while.
It is.
Is it worth looking that far?
I'll tell you what I mean. Maybe this is clearer. It's like when you get to a corner, you want to turn it because you go, I wonder what's round it. But if you can see round the corner without going round the corner, then, will you ever look round the corner? Maybe that's not...
He's tongue-tied. He's brain-tied himself again.
At this point, since we're out in space anyway, in more ways than one, I wanted to, Stephen, you tend to be the one who reads from Carl's diary. Is that something you look forward to?
Enormously. I mean, Carl. We had to persuade Carl to allow us to read from his diary.
You might
it's very
explain
much
what his
private.
diary looks like too.
Well, his diary is one of those enormous, oversized desk diaries. It's not the sort of discreet thing you keep in your pocket. It's a big black folder, essentially, of his gobbledygook. And every day he writes something down. He hopes to have learned something.
It weighs about £10. His writing is all in capitals, like the writing you see in a madman would leave about
just before
aliens.
he started picking people off from a clock tower.
Oh boy! Yikes! Well,
Which, of course, would help with limiting the population, Carl, if we had someone doing that.
hey, you wouldn't need the dinosaurs.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to play. This is from the last podcast that you guys did too. This is Stephen Merchant reading an entry from Carl's diary about the Big Bang Theory.
Oh.
Got my science book out. It said that the static you get on the telly when a channel isn't tuned in properly is radiation that is still knocking about from when the Big Bang happened. I thought about the Big Bang and wondered if it was really a Big Bang, or did it just sound louder as there was no other noise to drown it out.
Good point, isn't it?
From that next week.
I mean, wow.
Yeah, I agree. That's sometimes all I can think is wow.
Yeah.
I just. Have you ever heard us discuss the model of infinity with the infinite amount of chimps eventually
Eventually, but doesn't Carl believe that the chimps can't come up with anything by Shakespeare
Carl, what do you think of
because
that?
It's
He reckons it wouldn't happen if I hadn't read it first.
Right, the
He
chimps.
doesn't get the concept.
No,
He doesn't
right.
get the concept of using the trouble is, where people use that model of a chimpanzee not having consciousness, Carl doesn't believe that. Because Carl thinks that chimps think like us. Carl gets most of his scientific information from the Flintstones and the Planet of the Apes. So a chimpanzee is a really bad example to show random... it's infuriating.
But the biggest problem I've got with it is, right, and...
This is the chimp theory.
Bit.
The chimp
Yeah.
theory. Okay.
We should point out this is the theory that if you gave an infinite number of chimps an infinite number of typewriters, they would
Eventually write Shakespeare.
Eventually write the complete works of Shakespeare.
Right, my biggest problem is, it's not the same chimp.
Doesn't matter.
It does matter because...
Okay, let's change it then. It still works if you give a chimp an infinite amount of time. Eventually, he will type the complete works of Shakespeare.
But then the new one will come along, the different monkey, whatever the shift pattern is, one will finish the
forget
shift.
shift pattern. The shift pattern's got. I've told you before. It's got nothing to do with it. So okay, forget infinite amount of monkeys. Right, one monkey with a typewriter, given an infinite amount of time, will eventually, along with everything else, type the complete works of Shakespeare.
It just annoys me how you believe that, yet you're not having the,
Because it's a model to show the nature of infinity. We're not saying it would ever happen or will ever happen.
But they haven't even done chapter 1 of one yet.
But they're not actually conducting this experiment.
So why say it? It's a stupid thing to say.
Oh, really?
That's rich.
Okay, so other than being a platform for Carl's theories, do you guys think that podcasting gives you comic opportunities that other media really don't?
Well, yes, because it's sort of cheap. It's a cheap medium. We couldn't go on television and expect people to pay a TV license or to take advertising out on the drivel of Carl Pilkington. Whereas if we just stick it out there and people come across it, I mean, just think of us pitching this idea to a TV company. We get a shaved monkey and ask it stuff for half an hour. They're not going to be chomping at the bit, are they? Whereas this way we can show them the... I mean, I really do feel like I am a pioneer in the Old West, and I've found the missing link. Me and Steve think it was going round in some sort of wagon where we pull down the sheet and there's Carl sitting there in the cage, and all these people go, yes, see the roundness of his head, hear it speak, right? You know what I mean? It just go around every... I mean, I'd love to do a tour of America and give away little, pictures of Carl. They've met the missing link.
But Clark, do you sometimes think I have got a point? Do you ever think, he's right with that
You
one?
have... I sometimes think you have a point.
Right.
I'm not ever entirely sure what that point is.
Yeah, but it's the same as if Einstein, right? Say if he didn't have, like, everyone bigging him up like they have now. And
Yeah.
you hear the name
Yeah, I know.
Einstein. You go,
I know
"He's a
you're
bright fella."
anti-Einstein too. Yeah.
But what I mean is, if he said to you, all right, Clark, E equals MC squared, wouldn't you find that a bit like, what are you on about? What's your point?
That's a
what's
good
your
point.
point?
I
Yeah.
see now that you are like Einstein.
I'm just
it's
saying
a
every
perfect
idea,
metaphor.
every idea has to come from an egg, and I'm just laying the egg.
And you've just got a head shaped like an egg, and it's coming out of there.
You're just laying the egg, are you? So where is
Yeah.
Einstein there, building, of course, on Newtonian laws of physics? Your idea of dinosaurs rampaging around London in order to pick people off and keep the population down is based on what previous idea?
It's just one idea.
Jurassic Park?
It's just one little idea that could move on to another one.
Has the popularity of this surprised you?
Yeah.
I mean, 3 million downloads of 11
Yeah,
episodes?
We're getting about sort of 400,000 or 500,000 downloads a week now. I mean, it's amazing that these people are out there coming back and telling their friends. I mean, that's what's nice about it, that they listen, they download it, they bother to download it. It just doesn't come out of the radio waves. They're not, they bother to download it week after week.
I think one of the attractive things about podcasting, and something that we enjoyed with radio, and this in a sense gives us even more freedom, is that it doesn't have to be carefully crafted. It can feel like, and it is, three people having a conversation in a room. And I've always personally been a fan of any kind of media where you get, as it were, invited to someone else's conversation and you can sort of listen in. And ideally that would be some of the great thinkers of our time. But in this instance it's not. But it's I think it can be pleasurable. You can sort of plug yourself into someone else's life for half an hour and see the way they think. And I think there's something quite inclusive, hopefully, about the show.
Right, right.
Why you should choose to listen, I've no idea.
Yeah.